many parents should be allowed on a birth certificate? The rules say no more than 2, but today there's a push to change them.
Birth certificates were big in the ancient world. They let administrators keep track of the number of soldiers and how much tax they could squeeze out of a province.
They're also handy for getting into the pub when you've lost your driver's licence, your passport and your key pass and your pants. That happened to a friend of mine once.
Nowadays, your birth certificate is what makes you a citizen. It lets you claim government benefits, enrol a child in school, secure a passport, but despite what Pete says, it won't actually get you into the pub.
Nonsense. Just tell him Petey sent you.
Doctors and genealogists love them too. They allow us to track hereditary medical conditions and they allow us to build the branches of family trees. Though it's believed that around 10% of birth certificates have the wrong father listed due to infidelity.
Whoa, that did not happen to a friend of mine, as far as I know.
Basically, they tell us who we are and where we came from. But for some, it doesn't tell the full story. Hugo Atkinson was raised by 3 loving parents, but only his birth mother is listed on his birth certificate.
I think it's unfair and discriminatory. The law in New South Wales, as it is at the moment, is that a child born to a lesbian couple can only have 2 parents on the birth certificate. The donor of the sperm is presumed to be a non-parent. That's an irrebuttable presumption.
Now Hugo wants the law to recognise his mum, his dad and his other mum.
The law in 2015 ought to be capable of understanding and recognising the best interests of the child in those situations.
Hugo Todd Atkinson wants his parents to be recognised equally, all 3 of them. He joins us now. Hugo, firstly, can you explain the relationship between your parents?
Well, basically, you know, that's a question I get asked a lot, you know, because it's unlike, I guess, you know, your stereotypical male-female household. But basically, yeah, I have 2 lesbian mothers. They basically wanted to have a child, and they thought the closest biologically they could do that is to basically get my non-biological mum's brother to be the donor.
Hugo, when a lot of people think of birth certificates, they think family tree, lineage. So in terms of that, do you think that if we move forward with this, it could muddy the waters a little bit?
Well, you know, yeah, a lot of people do throw that out there. And one of the things that, you know, the reason why I wanted to get all my family reflected on there was because at the moment only my biological mum's on there. And I wanted to put my biological father on there, but I thought it was really unfair to basically do that without representing all my family on there. And I think, you know, it would only be a matter of, you know, properly mapping that legislation out as to how it would come up in the birth certificate to really, you know, not muddy the waters in that regard, but at least show how, you know, family structures have changed through history. I think it's a really important part to show the progression of our society, really.
Yeah, that's a really interesting argument. I suppose one of the counter-arguments you might get is that adoptive parents, for example, are not put on birth certificates, step-parents are not put on birth certificates. It's kind of meant to represent biology as opposed to sociology. Why do you think your case is different to that?
Well, yeah, that's actually a very interesting point because, yeah, I've heard a lot of different things regarding that, but in fact, in 2008, they brought in the same-sex relationship amendment, which allowed for de facto partners to actually be put on birth certificates, so non-biological de facto partners, what I like to call my other mother, on the actual birth certificate. And basically, I think that allowed, well, really was the catalyst for then me to go ahead and try to get my birth certificate changed. But when I went into the births, deaths and marriages, they basically said, oh, no, you can't have 3. You have to have one or the other. And so, you know, when I heard that, I was a bit, like, shocked.
Hugo, if this all happens and the Department of Births, Deaths and Marriages are going to have to upgrade all their software, that surely leads to jobs growth, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I think that's creating jobs, you know, and that's you know, something I'm definitely for. We need, you know, more employment for young kids, and I think that would be a great one.
Obviously, this is something that you're driving, but how do your parents feel? I mean, do they not care, or is this something that they are just as upset about?
Oh, well, you know, to be honest, they don't really... Look, they do. I think deep down they would really love it to change, but they've never really found the need to, have a piece of paper necessarily represent what they know and what our reality is.
Well, Hugo, you've raised an interesting issue and created an economic plan for the country's future. I'd say that's pretty good for 2 minutes' work. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.